Why thousands entered, but almost nobody returned. Beneath modern Paris lies a second city that never sees daylight, a vast underground network carved from limestone, holding millions of human remains and stretching far beyond what most maps record. It is known as the Paris Catacombs, and its existence began not as mystery, but as necessity. By the late 1700s, Paris faced a silent crisis. Cemeteries in the city were overflowing to the point of collapse. Heavy rain would expose graves, and decomposing remains began appearing in public streets. Entire districts were affected by contamination and disease. The problem was no longer religious or cultural. It was public survival. The city had to remove its dead. Beneath Paris already existed abandoned limestone quarries, tunnels carved centuries earlier to build the city above. Officials made a decision that would reshape the underground forever. These quarries would become a massive ossuary. The relocation began at night. Wagons carried bones through Paris streets under lantern light. Skulls and skeletal remains were transported in silence, away from public attention. Workers descended into the quarry system and began stacking remains in structured formations, turning raw tunnels into organized burial corridors. Over time, the scale became impossible to comprehend. More than 6 million people were transferred underground. But what began as controlled relocation soon became something larger and more complex. The quarry system beneath Paris was not a simple grid. It was fragmented, unstable, and partially unmapped. Some sections connected, others ended abruptly. Many branched into unknown directions, and no one had ever explored it fully. Workers began reporting unusual conditions underground. Sound behaved differently. Echoes distorted direction. Candles flickered without wind. In some tunnels, compasses failed to align properly. The deeper sections became increasingly disorienting. It became clear that the catacombs were not just storage space, they were a maze. By the early 1800s, curiosity replaced fear for many Parisians. Although parts of the system were officially controlled, large sections remained unsealed or poorly monitored. Entry points existed across the city through basements, wells, sewer connections, and forgotten construction openings. People began entering. Explorers, workers, and later illegal visitors descended into the tunnels, seeking curiosity, shortcuts, or hidden knowledge. But what they encountered was always the same pattern: repetition, corridors that looked identical, turns that felt familiar but were not, distance that could not be trusted. Many who entered became lost, not because they went too far, but because they could no longer recognize where they had already been. One early documented case describes a man who entered the tunnels searching for storage space beneath Paris. He never returned. Years later, his remains were found only a short distance from an exit point. Investigators concluded he had walked past safety repeatedly without realizing it. The catacombs do not just hide people, they disorient them. Throughout the 19th century, sections of the tunnels were used unofficially for movement beneath the city. In times of political unrest, underground routes allowed individuals to travel unseen. This transformed parts of the catacombs into hidden infrastructure, linking different districts through passages unknown to the surface world. But these same routes created confusion between mapped and unmapped regions. By the 20th century, unauthorized exploration increased significantly. Groups entered the tunnels for secrecy, isolation, and experimentation. Some chambers were modified, others were expanded. Electricity appeared in sections never officially recorded. Entire underground rooms existed briefly and then were abandoned without explanation. During World War II, the underground took on strategic importance again. Resistance groups used catacomb passages to move undetected beneath occupied Paris. Messages and supplies were transported through hidden routes. At the same time, opposing forces also operated in nearby underground zones, creating overlapping systems beneath the same city. The result was a fractured underground landscape layered with different eras of use. After the war, many entrances were sealed, but not all passages were documented. Large portions of the network remained untouched and forgotten. Decades later, modern urban explorers known as cataphiles began entering these restricted zones illegally. Their accounts consistently described the same phenomena: endless repetition, loss of direction, and auditory distortions that make space feel unstable. Some report hearing movement in tunnels that appear empty. Others describe corridors that seem longer when walked than when observed from a distance. While these claims remain unverified, the consistency of reports has kept public interest. Despite modern mapping technology, large sections of the catacombs remain unverified due to collapses, flooding, and restricted access zones. In 2004, authorities discovered something unexpected deep within the system: a fully functioning underground cinema. It contained power, seating, and projection equipment. The structure had been built without authorization in a sealed section of the catacombs. When investigators returned later, parts of the installation had been removed. No responsible group was identified. Only a single message remained: do not try to find us. Today, the Paris Catacombs are partially mapped but largely unexplored beyond official boundaries. Engineers estimate the known network extends over 300 kilometers, but geologists believe the true system may be far larger due to undocumented collapses and extensions. Beneath the city lies not just an ossuary, but a fractured underground world built across centuries, layered with burial, engineering, war, secrecy, and disappearance. Above ground, Paris moves forward as a modern global capital. Below it, the structure remains unchanged, a silent labyrinth holding millions of remains and passages that still resist being fully understood. And in those unmapped sections, beyond reinforced walls and collapsed stone, there are still tunnels where people enter and do not return.